This month, Apple had a very weird and un-Apple-like drop of products. In this video, I'm gonna tell you what was released and updated, and as always, at the end, I'm gonna give you my opinion. Let's get to it. Starting off with the HomePod. Yes, the HomePod is back. After being retired in 2021, it is now back. Although it is not quite the same, neither inside or outside. The only noticeable difference outside will be the fact that the glass up top has been changed to look more like the HomePod Mini. Now the colors go all around that glass, unlike before where the colors were only in the middle, and on the sides you have the volume buttons. Now the colors cover all around, so basically Siri is covering the entire glass maybe. Anyways, the only other difference, and that's not noticeable, is that it's a little bit shorter than the previous version, but again, that's not something that is noticeable. They also mentioned that it's a little bit more lightweight. Doesn't matter. It's supposed to be connected to electricity, and you're not supposed to move it after you connect it or not move it that much. So I don't think the weight really matters. All the other changes were on the inside. Starting with the processor, instead of the A8, it'll now use the S7 chip. The S7 chip is better at most things, but not that much better in others. It is basically a better processor, computing-wise, than the A8. But it does have something that is worse, which is the Wi-Fi. The A8 used to have a Wi-Fi, or the original HomePod used to have a Wi-Fi that was 802.11 AC. Now the new one will have 802.11n, and that is due to the chip that it is using now, the S7 chip. Since it's for the watch, it doesn't need to have that strong Wi-Fi, so they had that idea to just give it the 802.11n. Most people don't notice the difference. Now, where the big differences is on both the tweeters and the microphones. It will now have 7 tweeters instead of, it'll now have 5 tweeters instead of 5, and instead of 6 microphones, it'll now have 4. Apple says that there will be no noticeable difference in sound quality, but obviously this is something that we will just have to wait and see. For those of you interested, the price of the HomePod will be $299, just $50 less than the original HomePod cost originally. And it's still more than what the original HomePod was discounted to. We'll just have to wait and see if the price is enough for people to get excited about the HomePod again. At least I'm not excited. But if you have a different thing, if you like the new changes, go ahead and drop it in the comments down below. Now, the day before the return of the HomePod, Apple released the M2 Pro and M2 Max versions of their MacBook Pro line. So they updated the chips and they updated the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros respectively. And if it wasn't weird enough before, now it's even weirder. I thought that part of the decision that Apple chose to move away from Intel was to have a little bit more control over when releases were made, because they didn't have to depend on the Intel issues, so they could control it a little bit more. Granted, I know Apple does not actually make the chips. They pass that over to TSMC. They're the ones that actually build the chips, but they do develop them themselves, so they at least have that working. And since they had delays due to obvious reasons that I don't have to discuss since 2020, I thought that it would have been just fine to just skip a year and there would have been no problem at all. But they decided to release the M2 Pro and M2 Max versions of the chips, and these chips are just basically overclocked versions of the M1. They work in the same technology, which is the 5 nanometer second generation technology. Even they admitted to doing so right on the presentation. This actually looked a lot like a presentation, and a lot of people have been looking at the metadata for the videos, and these videos were ready since September or something like that of 2022. But getting back to the computers, they do indicate that there will be a 30% increase at least in what is CPU usage. They added 2 additional performance cores, so it's now 8 performance cores instead of 6, which is what it has before. And now you will be able to update it to up to 96 gigabytes of RAM. Now be very careful with the update. If you want the 96 gigabytes of RAM, you automatically have to go to the largest M1 Max, the one that has the most cores, both in CPU and GPU. And adding the 96 gigabytes of RAM is an extra $800 for a beautiful total of $4,299. Now, for you guys to have an idea, the 14-inch MacBook Pro starts at $1,999, so $2,000, while the 16-inch starts at $2,499. So that's $2,500. So there is a big difference. Unless you really need the 96 gigabytes of memory, I don't suggest doing so. If the other ones weren't enough for you, then I don't know how to help you, because these are basically the most powerful Macs that have ever been made so far. Now, on that same day, they also announced the Mac Mini and updates to the Mac Mini. And this is one that I actually liked. Of all the releases that they made, for me, this one was my favorite. They added the M2 chip. They lowered the price to $599, although there's a caveat with that one of the lower price. I will tell you that later on what it was. But you also have the option of adding an M2 Pro chip to the Mac Mini. It will start at $1,299 if you want the M2 Pro. But this is a good alternative, because before, if you wanted M1 Pro, you automatically have to go to the 14-inch MacBook Pro. That was $1,999 or $2,000. Now for $1,300, you have the option of having an M2 Pro Mac, and you can add whatever monitor you want, mouse and keyboard, anything like that. I think that is a really good alternative, and I really do like that. Now, here we go to my opinion. The reviews have started already, and it's bad news, especially for the base Mac Mini and 14-inch MacBook Pro. There is no word yet on the base 16-inch MacBook Pro. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully it will not be the same, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, with the M2 MacBook Air, they had an issue with the solid-state drives, that the read and write speeds were slower. They've done it again with the Mac Mini and the 14-inch MacBook Pro. And I gotta say, I have a problem with it. To a certain point, it's more with the MacBook Pro, because I can accept that the Mac Mini and the 14-inch and the MacBook Air, that you give it lower read and write speeds on the hard drive, because most of the people that want to buy those is to just get into the Apple ecosystem or get into the Mac systems, and they just want the base, the cheapest. There's no problem with that. Now when we get to the 14-inch and it says MacBook Pro, it is meant for professionals. And for professionals, time is money. Every second wasted, it's money lost. And for you to not give them the alternative and just force upon them that you will have lower speed if you buy the base MacBook Pro at $2,000, we expect more quality from both a device that claims to be Pro and a device that costs $2,000. $2,000 computer is an expensive computer, and I think Apple could have done better. Again, with the Mac Mini and the MacBook Air, I can let it slide, but not with the MacBook Pro. Not with the MacBook Pro. This is a Pro device. Pros expect quality. When something says Pro, you expect quality. And we're talking that the difference between read and write speeds, it's almost double. So if you export an image, export a video, render a video, all those intensive tasks that you do, the slower your drive is, the more time it will take. Now, for most of us, we won't care about the difference. It's mostly seconds. But for professionals, this is a really big deal. This is a really big deal. And I think Apple made the wrong decision on this. And this is starting to be a joke by now. This issue with the drives is starting to be a joke. And I honestly don't like it. I expected more. For Apple putting the name Pro on something, I expected a little bit more from Apple. I didn't think they were going to do it. But apparently, both me and a lot of people were wrong. Let me know in the comments what you think, both regarding about this issue with the SSDs and also about everything that was announced. Aside from the Mac Mini, are you excited about any of the other ones? I don't recommend, if you have already an M1 or M2, M1 Pro or M1 Max, for you to switch out. I am not even switching from my Intel Mac, in case anybody's wondering. I am going to wait for the 3nm process. That 3nm process does promise that there will be a significant jump in both performance and battery savings, so I will wait for that one. My computer is still working fine for me. Even though it does take a while, I can leave the video processing and go do something else because it's gonna take a while. But I really don't mind that right now. At this point, I don't mind that, so I'm just gonna wait for the 3nm. While you're down there, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that bell so you can get notified when we have new videos. Remember, as I always say, if you have a Google or Gmail account, you have a YouTube account. Sign in on your app or your favorite browser at youtube.com. Oh, sorry, youtube.com. Look for us at J.R. Abrams Tech. Go ahead and sign in, subscribe, and that like is very important. And for not just for me, for any other creator that you really like, that like is very important. And the only way you can do that is if you are signed in. As always, we're available on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and obviously YouTube at J.R. Abrams Tech, so you can stay up to date with the latest news and rumors about tech. Until next time.